wanted to start with you first. This is such a character-driven narrative with so much depth and nuance. What initially inspired this film, and what was it like finding your ensemble who brought this piece to life?
Yes. Okay. Inspiration is pretty much similar to the inciting incident of the film. When I was 29, 30-ish, a high school kid mistook me for a high school student and asked me out, and I was like, I'm old, and we laughed about it. But then I became really obsessed with wondering, what kind of woman would not have would not have told him her age or would have thought that going to that party he invited me to was a good idea. So that was where the kind of the inciting incident. And then the first piece to fall into place after script and producer was definitely Mitzi. She was the first
Mhm.
person we brought to the project, and we actually attached her about 2 years before we shot.
Mitzi, next question for you. There's so much to delve into when you're playing a character like Misha, who's messy, flawed, but innately human. And while those around her have their own expectations of her, she's happy with the life she's living. And that's so liberating. But it's her decisions and actions throughout the narrative that add that contrast and that color. As an actress, how did you create the space for yourself to tackle that emotional journey? And how have your experiences as a writer helped you pick up on the nuances that Zoe was trying to convey through this character?
Well, I'll say first and foremost that Misha and I actually have a lot in common in the sense that, I mean, I kind of think that all artists probably have like something in common with Misha in the sense that like we're just compelled to live lives that are a bit unorthodox. We are constantly challenged, I think. Like every year I look at how much money is in my bank or like how much money I made, and it's like society is telling me like go get a real job.
Mm.
That's some like years of strikes. It's like just stop already, you know? So we're like constantly having to just like cleave to what we believe in. In terms of Misha, like the hardest thing to let go of was just having no like aspirations like beyond her world. So really trying to like imbue a character like that with enough, I feel like with just enough charm and like putting all of her value in kind of her relationships around her to fill her life rather than have ambitions.
Mhm.
And then in terms of like connecting to the writing and like getting all of the beats right, I mean, Zoe was such an able steward of that. Like the writing was, you just had to follow it along and all of the pieces were there. Like it's so beautifully written and thoughtful. And Zoe is such a brilliant director. And we got to do like several takes of different kinds of tones to really figure out what felt right in the moment.
Yeah. The performances and the writing are absolutely stunning in this film. Laird, you brought such a youthful energy to Jake, and for so much of this film, he's this happy-go-lucky guy who has such a zest for life. But there's a scene at the end where you really get to show off your dramatic work. How did you prepare for that moment in particular, which is such a contrast to your character's development throughout the film? And what was it like getting to watch that heartbreaking moment in front of a live audience at Slamdance?
Yeah, it was interesting because, obviously, like you were saying, juxtaposing it with the rest of the character, it was like being on set, and I think I've said this a few times, it was just like a ton of fun just shoot most of this character, right? Um, but when it came to that, I mean, I suppose really for Jake, it's more so what he's broken up about is not is more so this idea of a life he built together for them that has now been shattered because she lied to me. And had she been up front in the beginning, Jake, I suppose maybe could have reconciled that. But the fact that he built all this up in his head, and he's so hopeful for what's going forward, it breaks his heart, right? Like this is a woman, maybe it's the moronic optimism of youth, but he thinks
Nice one.
that maybe
Yeah.
one day they're going to be together forever, right? Like that's his whole deal. And then when he finds out like they're not going to have the experiences of growing up together and just growing old in the same age group together, it breaks his heart. And for me, it was really easy because it's really easy to act that emotion because being lied to and being deceived in such a way is, I'm sure, a universal human experience. So for me, it was quite easy to get into that character. And obviously with Mitzi here, it's never hard to film a scene.
Kanoa, you've worked on projects of all sizes. What is it about independent filmmaking that excites you as a creative and a storyteller? What was it about this character in particular that resonated with you?
Well, nice to talk to you again, Kevin.
Likewise.
I it's I just, I mean, I love acting so much, and I just love making things and creating things. So there's value in it all, you know. I mean, like working on a TV show feels so big and exciting, and it's like this massive machine that feels fun and exhilarating. That being said, there's something so pure and like beautiful to making indies, and I think it's because everybody's heart is in a very similar place, you know. Nobody's there to make a dime, and it just is like this really fast and furious experience, and you become really close to everybody really quickly, and it just feels like everyone's intentions are aligned, you know, with what, and you're there because of the story, because of the writing, or because of the people that you're wanting to work with. And so that's what I love about it. It feels so pure. It feels so like I'm sure why we all are drawn to this, you know. It's and yeah, and in terms of Vic, I mean, Zoe had seen another film I did called I Was a Simple Man, and reached out to me from there, and it was sort of very collaborative because the first iteration of Vic was very different, actually. Much older, just quite a caricature, I would say, on paper. Not a dig on your writing, Zoe. And so when we met, I just loved her energy, and like Mitzi was saying, the script is so strong, and so I was like, I want to do this, but obviously I feel like I'm not the obvious first choice. Thank you for being flexible. And so I think my way into the character was just finding that really childlike, carefree, free spirit, you know, essence that's in me as well, and bringing that, and it kind of worked that Misha's character and Vic are like super tight because they're maybe a year or so apart, and so they grew up sort of as best friends and siblings, and so just kind of fostering that closeness and that easy rapport together was my initial way in, I think.
Yeah, and you play such an integral role in that realization towards the end of the film. And Mitzi and Laird, something that Zoe did so brilliantly with this screenplay is the dynamic between your two characters is less about that romantic connection and more so about the impact that they have on one another. How did the two of you build that bond on such a tight filming schedule? And was there a moment when you were filming when you realized you had the dynamic needed to bring this pair to life?
I mean, as soon as we had a chemistry read before we started, I read with a few people, and Laird came in with such confidence. Like, Laird was also not what we were looking for at all. Like, we were looking at like kids, which, you know, I was like, this is what Misha would do, right? This is what the movie's about. So we have to be willing to go there. We have to be open to these like very juvenile, like spring, like 17-year-olds. And like I did have chemistry with some of them, which, you know, I judge myself for. And then Laird came, and Laird had this like youth that exists in a high school student, like optimism, youth, this like way of jesting and jousting that worked really well with me, like right off the bat. Like I think his way in, I think, was teasing me. You can tell me if I'm wrong, but like that's what I felt, and that really worked for me. So then that sort of built instant chemistry between the two of us, and like he's a pretty good looking guy. And then it made the script way more interesting that he kind of looks older, but is young, and I look younger, but I'm older. So it's still like, now it's just strictly about like, what does that say about society and faux pas, and yeah, I'll say like, yeah, my way in was just teasing incessantly. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, like Mitzi was saying, it makes it much more of a gray area, which is really cool, right? I think it adds a great dynamic to the script, because you can't totally judge her character so solely predicated on legality, right? It's become he's legal, but there's a bunch of other questions that need to be asked. But yeah, with Mitz, it was like, I remember coming into the chemistry read and it just like clicked. Like, we got along. I think we have like the same kind of humor sort of when interacting with each other. So on set was like we were just constantly messing with each other all the time. So it built this chemistry. We had this chemistry off screen that just kind of happened, and it just obviously translated to the screen. So yeah, I mean, it just happened kind of. I don't think there's anything we did or worked on. It's just spawned, so to speak.
Yeah, no acting, just no effort whatsoever. Yeah, just we're living.
What I mean by that is like we didn't have to spend time. Like the director wasn't, "Oh, you guys should spend time together to build your chemistry." We were just like, it just walked on set and we just went from there.
Yeah.
It's electric to watch on screen. Zoe, it's been so important to you throughout your career that the stories that you create and the people that you work with on screen and behind the camera reflect your community. What has it meant for you to have this film, your cast and crew, as well as yourself, celebrated on such a global scale with the world premiere at Slamdance, and getting to see the response with how it's resonated with so many?
I mean, it's pretty shocking, to be honest. This is the 10th film that I've been involved with, mostly as a producer. This is, the first one that I've written and directed. But so to get into Slamdance was a shock, and then to go and build, our film was really buzzy. We don't know why, other than an excellent publicist. Like, people were excited about our screening. The screening sold out in advance. Like, all of us were just kind of, I think, really hopeful going into the weekend. At least I was. And then to see the film appreciated and understood was, I think, what all of us can hope for, is that you make something, people understand it, and then they like it. People seem to like it. So yeah, pretty stoked on it. And we won the Grand Jury Award for our category, and that was a shock as well. So pretty stoked over here. I'm back in the jungle now, in the middle of nowhere, just kind of still pretty stoked.
Yeah,
well deserved. I feel like this film's going to open so many doors for all of you. And Kanoa, in a similar vein, the last time that we spoke, we discussed how our community was often overlooked for leading roles, but now we've got projects like Chaperone that features an entirely Asian American and Native Hawaiian Pacific Islanders cast at the helm. And there's so many stunning performances across the board. How do you hope this project continues to open doors for our community? And how much does the scarcity of these types of roles and projects fuel your performance in the film?
It's just so cool to get to go home and make TV, movies, anything. It's people like Zoe who are talented and who are, she said in other interviews, I'm sure it's intentional to hire people that are reflecting the community, but it's also just a byproduct because that's where she lives and that's what she's seeing and living. And so of course she's going to write these stories and these characters. And I just think that's so important. One of my favorites about this particular piece is that it's a story that could happen anywhere, yet it just happens to be reflected in this local Hawaiian community, and with people that reflect the people of Hawaii, which is Native Hawaiians, mixed, Asian, API, it's all of that. And yet it's not necessarily like this piece that's shoved in a performative way into your face. It's just, those are the people in the story. And that also was valuable to see, And so, not to say that those stories that are a bit more intentional with that activism aren't important. They absolutely are. But I think people seeing these normal stories with people that look like us is also really valuable. And yeah, I just hope that this film doing well at Slamdance and just attracts the right type of distributor and gets it seen on a wider, to a wider audience, because it absolutely deserves it.
Yeah, it's coming. And that's also like the next stage in representation, is having these diverse characters that you don't need to call attention to. This is a question for the entire cast, but Zoe wrote and directed this project. How different is the filming experience when the person who's created these characters and this universe is also at the helm directing? What was that collaboration like?
it's always such a relief as an actor to have full trust in your director and writer and not be at odds with them, not feel like they're using you, not feel like they're trying to like manipulate the story in order to make a statement like that doesn't resonate with you. It was really important to Zoe that we were all represented fully, that we were able to actually like express, you know, all of the colors of whatever we were bringing to the table. I felt very listened to, and it's just like getting to go to work and see a bunch of people who look like me, just and getting to feel at home that way is, I just feel so incredibly lucky to have that. And I hope that we get used to seeing more families of different colors, you know, on our screens.
Yeah, so I think for me, I just second everything what Mitzi said. You know, just coming into this, I just want to thank Zoe for trusting me with this character. For one, you know, we had to obviously, like Mitzi was saying, we had to switch up some of the characteristics of this guy. So, you know, it was definitely a little bit of a risk script wise. And as for like our character, the character Jake, and building him and, you know, playing him on screen and in shooting, it's, you know, with Zoe, I mean, she kind of we agreed on a lot of the ideas when I was initially, you know, kind of figuring out who this guy was and all that stuff. And but she, when I got on set, she kind of just let us go a little bit. Like with that, it's like, yeah, when there's direction was needed, we got it. But as for our creative, what do you call that process? We were kind of just allowed to do what we needed to do and build the character how we needed to build it, you know, and whatever felt good to us, right? Which is, I mean, it's a huge relief. It's freedom in our field. So, and then to end up, you know, with in the final cut of the film to find that what we did worked and all that stuff. It's just it's I mean, it's euphoric. Really is all I can say about that.
Making something is it's like lightning in a bottle when it comes together and it works, especially under the constraints that this film was made. You know, it was like 13 shooting days. There's not a lot, you're kind of relying on your instincts. And so we really, as the actors, do rely on our director, Zoe. And it's just when that person actually wrote the script as well, it's like even more information that they have, you know, it's everything, it's her everything. And so but yeah, we, like Mitzi said earlier, it's like we would strategically, I think, play the scene in multiple different ways and try to hit different energies. And so I think that we all agree that then watching it all kind of come together in this really cohesive way that's powerful and compelling is just like amazing, and a testament to Zoe's talent as being able to kind of see that as we're doing it, you know.
Yeah, also a testament to
so nice to me, thank you.
Yeah,
Also,
definitely
Zoe was so generous with her backstory. Like, she wasn't hiding anything from us, so we didn't feel like we needed to hide from her. That's how I personally.
Yeah.
Like, Zoe's now just a very dear friend to me because we.
Yeah, I was definitely a little worried about like after, like, you know, I don't know, like I had so much fun on set, so I was like, dude, fuck, like, did I do what I need to do? Like, you know what I mean?
We had to bring Laird in a little bit.
Yeah. It was like it was really cathartic to see it on screen and see it all work out. So thank you, Zoe. Thank you so much.
This is also your solo full-length directorial debut. What was the most surprising part about this experience, and what was the biggest takeaway?
Most surprising part, let's see, was I think just how much joy the cast and I had working together. I mean, I really agree with them that we got to play. And that was fabulous because we didn't have a lot of time, right? We had 13 days, and that was with an additional rain day, which is just insanity. We had 18 locations. I mean, we were running around all the time. So I think the biggest takeaway would be, you know, more time would have been better, but we were really able to, I think, lean into, you know, what we did have, which was the relationships that we were building with one another that were then coming through on screen.
One final question for the entire group, because I feel like this project again is going to open so many doors for you. There's so much buzz around this film outside of Chaperone. What's next for each of you?
It's a great.
I'll go first. I'll go first. Since I am primarily a writer, I have a novel coming out in a couple weeks. It's coming out on February 6th. So you know, I'm supposed to be talking about that, and I'm stoked too. It's also set in Hawaii, so if you like Hawaii stories, hopefully you'll like this one. It's called Significant Others, and you can find it on the internet.
I have an advanced copy, so my plan is to read the book. We're coming out of a strike, so I don't really know what I'm doing. It's like very slowly thawing again, the industry. So seeing where that leads, being open. Honestly, like getting to be Misha was a great education in like agency and accountability. It's like whatever life you want, you have to choose it. Like you have to actively choose the things that you want to do. And like through COVID and the strike and just acting in general, it's like I sort of ask myself every day, what do I want to be doing? What makes me happy? Like truly happy. So I'm kind of like on a journey figuring that out right now. I'm doing a lot of environmental sustainability work when I can, because that's the thing that matters like the most to me. And also writing and illustration in addition to acting, hopefully, like just seeing how all these things fit together.
Agree with Mitzi. It's been such a bizarre year. Thankfully, I felt I was nice and busy the first half of the year, and then I think now I'm feeling what everyone's feeling. I'm just like, all right, let's get back to it, you know. But no, I'm waiting to hear on a couple of things, but it's staying open and seeing what's next. I mean, being able to look forward to this film at Slamdance was such a treat, and especially coming out of the strikes, something to look forward to. And maybe Zoe and I are actually maybe thinking about writing something together, which is really exciting.
Cool.
Remove the qualifiers. Remove the qualifiers.
Okay, yeah. We're going back and forth, and I'm feeling something inside of me want to actually commit to writing something, and so feeling like Zoe is my friend now, I'm really looking to her to help hold my hand through it, and yeah, we'll see what comes of it. Very early.
Excited though.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, for me, I just kind of the same thing, like Kanoa said, just reading for stuff and waiting to hear on a few things. But I also have 2 other films coming out this year, so I'm just really excited to see what's gonna swing out. So